Good morning, everybody. So, in this session, we are going to start a new chapter called Indian Agriculture. So, yesterday we were discussing about soils, and we have discussed about alluvial soil, black soil, red soil, and laterite soil. Apart from that, we have mountain and forest soil, and marshy and peaty soil. That is nothing but soil of wetlands, which you already know. Good morning, everybody. So, guys, I'm going to give you the handout for the rest of the soil types. Okay, so we have discussed the four most important soil types in India, right? For the rest of the soil types, I will be giving you a handout. It's like very easy to understand. You don't have to worry about anything. And if you have any doubts, I'm always there. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so now let me start Indian agriculture chapter. And after this, we just will just move on to economic geography. And then tomorrow, we will start discussing climate of India. We will start discussing the monsoon mechanism and the other topics in the climate chapter. Okay. So the other types of the soil, whatever are left out, I will give you handout for that. You just go through that. You'll understand everything. I'm pretty sure. But if you are not able to understand, then I'm always there here. Okay. You can just ask the management to schedule a class, and if you just tell me 1 or 2 days before, I will definitely take a class and I'll clear all your doubts. So please don't worry about that. So, in Indian agriculture, we are going to discuss about cropping pattern. Now, this is a very, very important topic. Now, what do you mean by cropping pattern? Cropping pattern refers to the time and arrangement of crops in a particular land area. So, in a given land area, what are the different types of crops that are grown? Okay, and at what time different crops are grown? Understanding that pattern is nothing but cropping pattern. Now, India is a very large country, right? India is the seventh largest country in the world in terms of land area. Now, we cannot discuss what crops are grown in every part of India. That is too complicated, so much information, so much factual data, and we don't need all that. Okay, that is simply waste of time for us. All those things will never be asked in the exam. Take it for granted. So, we don't need any factual data, but we have to understand the trends and patterns in the agriculture. Okay, that is what is important. But what crops are grown in a particular place in India, that is not important to us. I hope you're understanding. Like, for example, what crops are grown in Nashik of Maharashtra? Nobody will ask you that. And you don't have to know about that. Take it for granted. But in Maharashtra, what are the various cropping patterns? That we need to know. Okay. So let us not focus on the factual part, ignore all the factual data. Let us only concentrate on the cropping patterns. Okay. Clear, right? So, cropping pattern refers to the time and arrangement of crops in a particular land area. Different crops are grown in an area at different times. That is called cropping pattern. Okay? Different crops are grown in an area at different times. So, that is called cropping pattern. As simple as that. Clear, right? Now, this cropping pattern depends on so many factors, and we are going to understand each and every factor in detail. What are the various factors on which the cropping pattern depends on? First, you have climate. So, when I say climate, obviously temperature, rainfall, and we'll also consider wind and also elevation, altitude. Next, soil, the type of soil. Next, support price. Because if government is offering support price for a particular crop, then all the farmers will start cultivating that crop only because there is an assured guaranteed income for the farmers. Next, value. Okay. Now, in many parts of India, people have stopped cultivating the traditional crops, that is, rice, wheat, and they started cultivating high value crops. Like, for example, apples, not only apples, many exotic vegetables, okay, and nuts like almond, walnuts, all these are high value crops, okay. So, value and then demand in the market. labor availability, historical setting. All these are the factors on which the cropping pattern depends on. Clear, right? Now, first, let us discuss about climate. Rice is cultivated extensively when the monsoons are good. But when monsoons are weak, millets are grown instead of rice. Okay, we are just trying to understand how important factor climate is. So when monsoons are very good, rice is cultivated extensively, most of India. But when monsoons are weak, millets are cultivated instead of rice. Now, millets are climate smart crops. Millets are drought resistant as well as heat resistant. So, millets are called climate smart crops. Okay. Now, cotton in Maharashtra, tea in Assam, jute in West Bengal remain the dominant crops due to highly favorable conditions for cultivation. Now, cotton in Maharashtra. Okay. So, what are the various suitable conditions for cotton? We are going to discuss. Don't worry about that. And just look at tea here for now. We all know that tea grows on the hilly slopes which are well drained. That means there is good amount of moisture. On such hilly slopes, you find tea. So, don't you think Assam's climate represents all those conditions? Okay. The hilly slopes of Assam are very well drained. There is monsoon, right? So tea is cultivated extensively in Assam. And not only that, the Darjeeling Hills of West Bengal are also very suitable for cultivation of tea. Actually, Darjeeling tea is world famous, right? Darjeeling tea has GI tag, geographical indication tag. Okay? And jute. When we speak about jute, most of the jute in India will only come from West Bengal. Okay? So I hope you understood this. So, guys, if you have any doubts or if you're not understanding anything, you can ask me. Please don't postpone your doubts. Please don't keep doubts in your mind. Okay. So, moving on. The next factor is soil. Regur soils are ideal for cotton cultivation. Actually, what is the other name of black soil? Black cotton soil or regur. So, regur soils are ideal for cotton cultivation. Cotton is the obvious choice in black soils when the climate is favorable. Okay, so soil. To be honest, with the help of latest agricultural techniques and use of fertilizers and the other agrochemicals and all that, we can actually cultivate any type of crop in any type of soil. Okay, but there are some crop soil combinations. Like, for example, black soil. What is the most ideal crop in black soil? Cotton. Fine. After cotton, what is the next most ideal crop? Rice and sugarcane. Okay, so it is like that. There are some favorable crop soil combinations. Next, minimum support price. Now, rice and wheat, which are offered MSP, are preferred by the farmers. Okay, there is a lot of rice and wheat cultivation, right? So, why do you think many farmers are cultivating rice and wheat over large areas of land? Because government offers MSP. Actually, MSP is offered on many more goods, not only rice and wheat. But anyway, there is an assured minimum income to the farmers. So that is acting like a courage to the farmers to take this step and to cultivate rice and wheat. Next, demand. Rice is the preferred crop in densely populated regions as there is a ready market. Okay. Now, in all the densely populated regions, rice is cultivated very widely because it's a densely populated area. Market is readily available. Okay. So you cultivate rice and you can sell that immediately in the market. As simple as that. Now, historical setting. Even this is a very, very important factor. Now, sugarcane is grown more extensively in North India. Actually, to be honest, more than North India, South India is more suitable for cultivation of sugarcane because sugarcane plant it needs warmer climate. Okay, so sugarcane is more suitable in South India, but compared to South India, it is very extensively grown in North India. Why? There is a historical reason behind that. This is because the sugarcane cultivation was encouraged by the British as an alternative to indigo, which lost its significance and market in states like UP due to introduction of artificial dyes. We all know this, right? Praveen, what is GI tag? Now that is a very very big topic, but anyway, GI tag will be covered under intellectual property rights chapter of science and technology by the concerned science and technology faculty. So just don't worry about that. So there's a chapter called IPR. Under that, patent, trademark, industrial design, okay, GI tag, and many more types of IPRs will be covered. Okay, so just don't worry about that. So right now, if I start explaining what is GI tag, we'll completely deviate, and that topic itself will take another 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. So I hope you understood all these factors. Very simple, right? Easy to understand. So cropping pattern is influenced by all these factors: climate, soil, support price, demand, value, labor availability, historical setting, etc. Now, you understood about the climate, right? Actually, climate is the single most important factor. Okay. I cannot go and cultivate rice in a desert region. It's absolutely not possible unless I have very, very good irrigation facilities. It is not possible. So, climate plays a very, very important role, especially because two-thirds or the vast majority of the total arable land in India is rain fed. It depends on the monsoons. Clear, right? So, we can divide the various factors affecting cropping patterns into three categories. First, geographical factors, next, economic factors, next, political factors, and government policies. So, all the factors that affect the cropping pattern are broadly classified into three categories: geographical factors, economic factors, and political factors or government policies. First, geographical factors: relief, soil, temperature, and rainfall. When I say relief, I'm referring to slope as well as elevation. Okay. Next, economic factors: availability of irrigation facilities, availability of power first. See, even if I have very good irrigation facilities, if there is no power, how do I use them? Okay. Irrigation power, size of the land holdings, even this is very, very important. Okay. So just imagine that a farmer is having a small land holding, a small piece of land. He's a very small farmer. Then what will be his priority? To cultivate for his own family. He has to feed his own family first, right? So whatever he is going to cultivate will be used for his own family. That is called subsistence agriculture. Okay. So size of the land holdings also play a very, very important role. And then sale price of the crops. That is nothing but value that we have discussed before. Next, income of the farmers. If a farmer is very rich farmer, then obviously he'll buy seeds of high value plants, high value crops. He will also buy better quality seeds. Okay, he'll use better quality inputs, agrochemicals, and insurance and investment. All these are the economic factors. And next, government policies. Government can encourage or discourage certain crops due to various reasons like drought, flood, inflation, etc. Okay. So I told you that sugarcane is more suitable in South India compared to North India because in South India temperatures are warmer and sugarcane plant needs warm temperature. In spite of that, there are some areas in the South India where sugarcane is very very bad because all these areas are drought prone. Like, for example, in the previous class, we have discussed about the peninsula rivers, right? Then I told you that some parts of Godavari and Krishna basins will be drought prone. Okay. In those areas, you cannot cultivate sugarcane. First of all, there is no water. And even if you cultivate sugarcane, it is very bad for the local environment because sugarcane it takes in a lot of water. Okay, it reduces the soil moisture a lot. It reduces the groundwater levels. Sugarcane takes in a lot of water. Okay, now in spite of knowing that sugarcane cultivation is very bad, still people do that due to sugar mafia. Okay, so in such places, government can discourage cultivation of sugarcane because first of all, areas are experiencing drought, and if you cultivate sugarcane there, the drought will be intensified. The drought will be so intensified that even the soil moisture will get removed by the sugarcane plant. Okay, or just imagine that the onion prices are very very high due to inflation. That means the demand is very high and the supply is very low. Then the government can encourage onion farmers to plant more onion crops, something like that. Clear, right? So I'm hoping that you got all these things. Okay. So again, if you have any doubt that is relating to the topic that we are discussing, ask me immediately. Moving on, relief. Okay. What do you mean by relief? When I say relief, I'm referring to slope and elevation. And you know both the things, right? Rice is the main crop on irrigated hill terraces. Terraced cultivation. I showed you the image of terraced cultivation, right? Like step by step. Okay, terraced cultivation. So, on well irrigated hill terraces, rice is the main crop. Crops like tea and coffee can be grown only on well drained slopes that receive good amount of rainfall. Okay? So relief also plays a very very important role. Now, temperature. Rice is a tropical crop. Okay, and sugarcane also. Rice and sugarcane dominate well irrigated regions with fairly warm climate. But when you speak about wheat, wheat is a temperate crop. Wheat grows well in plain regions with moderate temperature and rainfall. Okay, so that is the reason I told you that sugarcane is more suitable for South India compared to North India. Okay, now rice and sugarcane both are tropical crops. They need warm climate, warm and well irrigated regions. Both rice and sugarcane consume a lot of water. Now, wheat, it is a temperate crop. That means it needs cool regions. Again, when I say cool, don't think about temperate countries. Not that cool also. Like warm temperatures are enough for wheat. I hope you're understanding. So for rice, we need hot temperatures, hot to warm. For wheat, we need warm to cool. Just think in this way. Okay. So, wheat is a temperate crop that grows well in plain regions with moderate temperature and rainfall. It doesn't mean wheat cannot be grown in the southern India. Wheat can be grown in South India during winter. Okay? Now, sugarcane gives good yield in South India than in northern plains because the sugarcane plants need warm climates. Clear, right? So I hope you're understanding how important temperature is as a factor. Now, some crops require lower temperature at the time of sowing and higher temperature at the time of ripening. Okay. Some crops require lower temperature at the time of planting the seed and higher temperature at the time of ripening of the fruit or vegetable. Okay. So, when do you cultivate such crops? You sow the seeds just before summer, and during summer, the fruit or vegetable will be ripened, and then you harvest it. Now, some crops require higher temperature and are sown in summer season. Okay, and most of the growth falls under the rainy season. Such crops are called kharif crops. Very, very important. I'm hoping that by this time everybody knows what is Kharif and Rabi, but even if you don't know, that is totally fine. I'm going to explain this topic from the basics, from the very scratch. So just don't worry about that. See, there are two patterns here. Some crops require lower temperature at the time of sowing and higher temperature at the time of ripening. Okay, for the fruit or vegetable to ripen, they need higher temperatures. Okay, but some crops they require higher temperature and are sown in the summer season. Even for planting the seed, we need higher temperatures. So they are sown in summer season. Now, if you are sowing the seed in summer season, then most of the growth of the plant happens during the rainy season. Because after summer, what do you have? You have the monsoon season, right? Actually, summer and monsoon are combined together, and we call it as the hot and wet season. So if you're planting the seed in summer, then most of the growth of the plant will obviously happen during the rainy season, right? Then these type of crops are known as kharif crops. And what are the examples of kharif? You must remember this at any cost. Okay, I'll tell you more examples. Don't worry. Rice and cotton as of now. Okay, kharif crops, rice and cotton. Just keep these two in mind for now. And as we progress, we'll discuss some more examples. Now, Kharif crops are sown just before the burst of southwest monsoons. Okay? So please keep this in mind. You know about the southwest and northeast monsoons, right? So just before the arrival of southwest monsoons, Kharif crops are sown. Clear? Now, there are other crops which require lower temperature and lower moisture, and they are sown in the winter dry season. Best example, wheat. And these crops are known as Rabi crops. So that is the basic difference between Kharif and Rabi. Okay. So what about Kharif? They require warm temperatures and they also need a lot of moisture. So they are sown just before the rainy season. Okay. And maximum growth of the plants happens during the rainy season. And these plants are Kharif crops. Best example, rice and cotton, and even sugarcane. Okay. Now, what about Rabi? These crops they need lower temperature and also they need lower moisture. They cannot withstand very hot temperature during summer, and also they cannot withstand very high amount of moisture that will kill the plant. So these are sown during the winter dry season. Best example is wheat, and these crops are Rabi crops. So did you all get this? Now, we'll discuss many more points, don't worry. Now, let us discuss about rainfall factor. Till here, we were discussing about the temperature factor. Now, let us discuss about rainfall factor. Okay. Now, when you say rainfall, we can divide areas on the basis of rainfall as areas of heavy rainfall, areas of medium rainfall, and areas of low rainfall. Okay. So, first, areas of heavy rainfall. In such areas, what crops are cultivated? First of all, what do you mean by areas of heavy rainfall? In India, if the annual rainfall is more than 150 centimeters, then that area is area of heavy rainfall. As simple as that. So, what is the condition? More than 150 centimeter of annual rainfall. That is the condition. Now, parts of eastern and northeastern India and the coastal plains, they all belong to this category. Clear? Now, animal population is high here due to the availability of fodder and grazing area. Since because there is a lot of rainfall, you find lot of pastures. What do you mean by pasture? An area covered with green grass. Okay. Now, what are the important crops in areas of heavy rainfall? Rice, tea, coffee, sugarcane, jute. All these are cultivated in areas of heavy rainfall. Okay. Next, areas of medium rainfall. What do you mean by that? Annual rainfall is between 75 to 150 centimeters. Now, 150 centimeter annual rainfall places are suitable for cultivation of rice. 75 centimeter annual rainfall places are suitable for maize, cotton, and soybean. I hope you're understanding. Wheat is the principal rabi crop in these areas. Which areas? Areas of medium rainfall. Okay. Wheat is the main rabi crop. Okay. Wheat, maize, cotton, soybean, millets, they're all grown in areas of medium rainfall, 75 to 150 centimeters. And if the rainfall is 150 centimeter or more, then you can cultivate rice there. Okay. If the rainfall is 75 centimeter, then in such areas you can cultivate maize, cotton, and soybean. Clear, right? Now, areas of low rainfall, that means 25 to 75 centimeter. All these are semi-arid stretches of India. So, what are the major crops in this belt? Millets, jowar, and bajra are grown in the northern part, jowar in central, ragi, which is also called finger millet, in the southern part. Okay. So actually, jowar, bajra, millets, they're all called coarse grains or rough grains. Okay. Now these are poor people's primary food. Okay, especially millets. Now, millets are of different types again. Ragi or finger millet is grown in the southern part, where there are areas of low rainfall. Okay, like yesterday I told you that some parts of Godavari and Krishna basin are very dry, drought prone. In all those areas where the rainfall is very low, ragi or finger millet is grown widely. Now in central part of India, mostly jowar is grown. And in the northern part, millets, jowar and bajra, all the three are grown. Okay, so did you get this, guys? Any doubts anybody has, please ask me. It is stuck for me. Like, is it stuck for you also? Give me 1 second. It is stuck. Okay. So I hope you understood this, guys. So areas of heavy rainfall, more than 150 centimeter of annual rainfall. Okay. Where do you find these areas in India? Parts of eastern, northeastern India, and coastal plains. So here animal population is high, and apart from that, rice, tea, coffee, sugarcane, jute, they're all cultivated in these areas. Next, areas of medium rainfall. That means 75 to 150 centimeters. So if the rainfall is 150 centimeter or more, then you can cultivate rice happily. If the rainfall is 75 centimeter or around that, then such places are suitable for cultivation of maize. Maize is also called corn, maize, cotton, and soybean. Okay, and wheat is the main rabi crop in areas of moderate rainfall or medium rainfall. Okay, so this point is very, very important. I don't know why I did not highlight this in bold, but this point is very, very important, guys. So, what are the main crops in areas of moderate rainfall? Wheat, maize, cotton, soya bean, and millets. Now, speaking about areas of low rainfall, 25 to 75 centimeter. That means we are talking about the semi-arid belts in India. So, what are the major crops here? Millets, jowar, bajra. Actually, bajra is pearl millet in English. Okay. So, the other types of millets, jowar and bajra, these are grown in the northern part of India. Jowar, like they make jowar rotis, right? Which are very famous. Jowar is grown in central India. And then ragi or finger millet is grown in the southern parts, especially the dry basin areas of Godavari and Krishna. Okay. Now here also, in areas of low rainfall, wheat is the main rabi crop, provided it is grown in irrigated areas. See, for irrigated areas, rainfall is not a big factor. Like, for example, there is a canal which is supplying water to many fields in a village. For those people, rainfall is an important factor. I'm not saying no. But even if there is drought in a given year, they can still manage with canal irrigation. Okay. So, in areas of low rainfall, also, wheat is the main rabi crop because wheat is very temperature sensitive. Wheat is the main rabi crop which is grown in irrigated areas. And if there is no proper irrigation facility, you cannot grow wheat. What else can you grow? Millets and jowar. That you can happily grow. And they are called coarse grains. Okay. Now, mixed cropping is very common, in which pulses are mixed with cereals. And what do you mean by cereals? We'll discuss now. Don't worry. Okay. Next, let us discuss about the soil factor. Rice is mainly grown in clayey soils, while loamy soils are best for wheat. Okay? So, rice is mainly grown in clayey soils because once clayey soils are saturated with water, they become almost impermeable. That means they cannot take in any more water. And for rice, we always need a layer of water, standing water. You all know paddy fields, right? I'll show you the image also, don't worry. So in paddy fields, there is always a layer of water standing. So that is the reason paddy fields are considered to be man-made wetlands. So rice is mainly grown in clayey soils. But again, there is no condition like that. Rice can also be grown in loamy soils. Rice can also be grown in red soil, which is mostly loamy. Okay. The Regur soil of Deccan Plateau is ideal for cultivation of cotton. Not only cotton, even rice. Because here, we just said that rice is mainly grown in clayey soils. And the Regur soil of Deccan Plateau, black soil, it is the best example for clayey soil. Okay. So Regur soil of Deccan Plateau is ideal for cultivation of cotton first and next second rice. Coarse grains such as jowar, bajra, maize, ragi, barley. Even maize is considered to be coarse grain. Jowar, bajra, maize, ragi, and barley. All these are coarse grains. Please keep in mind. Very important. They are all grown in inferior soils, light sandy soils or light black soils, red and laterite soils. Okay. Now these coarse grains are very resistant. These are very hard. Okay. So coarse grains have a lot of resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses, especially millets, ragi, bajra, the millets. They are called climate smart crops, as I told you before. So they are heat resistant, they are drought resistant, and they can also happily grow in low fertile, poor soil conditions. So that is the reason coarse grains, jowar, bajra, maize, ragi, and barley are grown in inferior soils. That means light sandy soils or light black soils, red and laterite soils, etc. See, yesterday we have discussed about alluvial soils, black soil, red soil, laterite soil. Now, these first two are variations of those soils. Okay. Now, delta soils of West Bengal are renewed by floods every year and are very fertile. Okay. They are ideal for jute cultivation. The farmers grow 2 to 3 crops of jute in a year in the delta areas of West Bengal. Okay. It seems like jute cultivation is almost entirely confined to West Bengal area. Okay. A very large amount of jute is grown there. Very large. And nobody can compete with West Bengal in terms of jute cultivation. Okay. Now, soils of Darjeeling Hills contain sufficient quantities of humus, which is the organic matter, the topmost level of the soil, organic matter, sufficient quantities of humus iron, potash, and phosphorus, which are necessary for tea to grow. And apart from that, most important, the slopes of Darjeeling Hills are well drained because there is good amount of rainfall there, monsoon rainfall. So yes, tea is very very famous here. Okay. So guys, I can seriously understand your condition. There is a lot of factual data here, a lot and lot of factual data. But again, we cannot help this. Very, very, very important chapter. One of the most important chapters in the entire geography. So you must remember. Okay. And the only thing which will help you is go through this handout twice or thrice and then make mind maps on your own. Mind maps, flowcharts, diagrams, and please revise that at least 2 or 3 times before going to exam. If you really want to crack this exam, you'll do all this hard work. Okay? Because unless you struggle, you won't remember. Trust me. Spoon feeding I'll do from my side. That is my job. But based on this material, you must prepare your own flowcharts and diagrams. Please don't depend on anybody else. You make your own diagrams. Ultimately, what is the objective here? To crack the exam. Just keep that in mind. So, whatever I'm telling you will really, really help you a lot. So, take my advice very seriously. So, make some mind maps, diagrams, tree charts, flow diagrams, or something, and revise that twice or thrice, and that's it. Nobody can stop you in the exam. Now, factors affecting cropping pattern. We have discussed about relief, soil, temperature, rainfall. Okay. And now, you know the meaning of irrigation, right? So, we are not going to discuss this. Let us discuss about size of land holdings. Okay. Uh, till here, we have completed geographical factors. We are still discussing factors that affect cropping pattern. Let us not deviate from what we are discussing. So, we have discussed soil, we have discussed rainfall, and then we have discussed relief. We also have discussed temperature. So, with this, we are done with geographical factors. We have discussed all these: relief, soil, temperature, and rainfall. Now, under economic factors, because I am dealing with geography, I'll only deal with size of land holdings because geography is also a very important chapter under Indian economy. Okay, so that will be dealt by the economy faculty. So right now, I have to deal with Indian agriculture from geography perspective. Yes, I should not, come out of my boundaries, right? So I'm going to deal with size of land holdings. Okay, and again, you know the meaning of MSP, right? You know food inflation and all that. So again, I'm not going to touch this. Size of land holdings. In case of small holdings, the priority of the farmers would be growing. I don't know why I'm making so many grammatical mistakes. Okay. In case of small holdings, the priority of the farmers would be to grow, okay, this is correct statement only, would be to grow food grains for his family members. That is called subsistence farming, as I told you before. Farmers with large holdings can opt for cash crops and help in crop diversification, leading to changes in the cropping pattern. Okay, just imagine that you have a large holding, some 50, 60 acres of land. Then you can carry out cultivation of cash crops. And not only that, you can go for crop diversification. Okay, we have discussed about crop rotation, crop diversification. Do you remember? So, on the same piece of land, cultivating different varieties of crops simultaneously at the same time on the same piece of land. So, you can go for agroforestry, you can go for plantation crops, you can go for cash crops like cotton and sugarcane. You can do all these things provided you have large holdings. Okay, but in India, in spite of crop diversification potential, large holdings are used mostly for monoculture of rice, wheat, etc. See, I know that there is a large population of small and middle farmers in India. Okay. not even middle. There's a large population of small and marginal farmers in India having very, very small land holdings and carrying out subsistence farming. But yes, there are also many farmers in India with large land holdings. We cannot deny that. Now, in large holdings, there is a very good potential for crop diversification and cultivation of cash crops on a large scale. Okay, but the farmers do not do that. In spite of crop diversification potential, large holdings are used mostly for monoculture of rice and wheat. This is one of the major issues in Indian agriculture. Okay, because we know that rice and wheat are given MSP. So the farmers are safe. They don't have to worry about selling their produce in the market. No matter what, they will get a guaranteed minimum income from the farmers and they are happy with that. Okay. So, in spite of having large holdings, some of the farmers, not all, some of the farmers go for rice and wheat cultivation. Okay. So, I hope you understood this. So, any doubts anybody has till here? So, if you have any doubts, kindly ask me, guys. Now, there is diversification of crops. I won't say that there is no diversification at all. There is some diversification of crops. And that happened due to surplus food grain production after green revolution. Okay, so I cannot simply say that there is no diversification at all. There is some sort of diversification, and that happened due to surplus food grain production post green revolution. Okay, so that led to changes in the cropping pattern, but not throughout India, only in very few limited places in India. Okay, so, other than rice and wheat, oil seeds and pulses also became prominent. Okay. Now, as I told you, crop diversification in certain regions has been negligible. For example, rice dominates well irrigated parts of South India, and wheat dominates northwestern part of the country, parts of Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan. Wheat dominates. Okay. So here we have discussed that in spite of having lot of diversification potential, large holdings in the country still go for monoculture plantations of rice and wheat. But I cannot say that there is no diversification at all. Yes, since Green Revolution, there has been some diversification, but it is still limited in India. Okay, still in the majority of the large holdings, people go for monoculture plantations. Take it for granted. So, in some parts of India where you have educated farmers and where you have local bodies and the district administration which is helping the farmers, empowering the farmers, there, other than rice and wheat, oil seeds and pulses are also grown. But as a whole, diversification is still very much limited in India. Okay. Rice dominates all the well irrigated parts of South India. And in the same way, wheat dominates all the irrigated northwestern parts of the country. Okay. So, this is one of the major issues in Indian agriculture. So, if at all you get any essay or question asking about issues, one of the first issues that you will raise is diversification of crops. That is very, very poor in India. Clear? So, I hope you understood this, guys. So, with this, we are done with the concept of cropping pattern. So, you have understood all the factors that affect cropping pattern, right? Okay. So, now you are in a position to understand any type of article or any type of thing that comes in the news or in any magazine or in any current affair. Okay. So, now let us start discussing about the major crops of India. And first, we'll discuss about rice, obviously, rice and then wheat. Okay. So the crops of India can be divided as food crops, cash crops, and plantation crops. What are the various food crops? Rice, wheat, maize, millets, jowar, bajra, and ragi. Okay, all these are cereals. Okay, now what do you mean by cereals? Grass like plants with starchy edible seeds. The seeds are called grain, having a high nutritional value. All these are cereals. So, rice grain is nothing but grain of the paddy plant, okay, or the seed, edible seed of the paddy plant. So, rice, wheat, maize, millets, all these are cereals. And what do you mean by cereals? Grass like plants with starchy edible seeds having a high nutritional value. And apart from that, we have pulses. Gram, tur, it's also called arhar, etc. We have many pulses, right? Okay. Now, cereals have high levels of carbohydrates and pulses are rich in proteins. We all know this, right? Simple information. Now, cash crops: cotton, jute, sugarcane, tobacco, oilseeds, groundnut, linseed, sesame, castor, rapeseed, mustard, all these are oil seeds. Okay, starting from linseed and even groundnut. Okay, and then cotton, jute, sugarcane, tobacco. We all know this, right? Next, we have plantation crops: tea, coffee, coconut, areca nut, rubber, and spices like cardamom, chilies, ginger, turmeric. All these are plantation crops. Okay. Now, what do you mean by plantation crops? Plantation means a single crop is raised on a large area. That is plantation. Clear? So, tea, coffee, coconut, spices, rubber, areca nut, all these crops are grown on large areas as monoculture. Okay, so that is the meaning of plantation agriculture. And apart from that, we have horticulture plants: onion, tomato, and various other vegetables, and fruits such as apple, orange, mango, banana, citrus fruits. All these are horticulture. Okay, so clear, right? Food crops, cash crops, plantation crops, and horticulture crops, or simply horticulture. Okay, so crop classification based on climate. Okay, first, tropical. Tropical crops grow well in warm and hot climate. Example: rice, sugarcane, jowar. All these are tropical crops. Next, temperate. Temperate crops grow well in cool climate. For example, wheat, oats, gram, potato, apple. All these are temperate crops. Classification of crops based on growing season: Kharif, rainy, or monsoon crops. Three names are there: Kharif, or rainy, or monsoon crops. These crops grow in the monsoon months. We have discussed before, right? So they are sown before the monsoon and they are harvested at the end of the monsoon. So these crops grow from June to October or November maximum. Next, Rabi or winter or cold season crops. The crops grow in winter season and they are sown before a retreating monsoon and harvested before summer. Retreating monsoon is also called northeastern monsoon. We have discussed about that. Do you remember? We have southwestern monsoon and northeastern monsoon. Okay? Now you'll understand all this tomorrow when we discuss the monsoon chapter. Okay? So, what is the time period for Rabi crops? October to March. And next you have summer or Zaid crops. These crops are grown in summer and they are sown and harvested in summer. That means they have a very short span from March to June. So summer crops are very few in number, but most of the crops are Kharif and Rabi. Clear? So actually, there is nothing much for me to explain here because the entire Indian geography is like that. It's very factual. I just feel like, I'm reading out whatever is there on the screen because there is nothing here for me to explain. Okay? So if you have any doubts, kindly ask me. So are you getting all this? See, I'm discussing only those things which are necessary for the exam. Actually, we are just, discussing very superficially because ultimately we are not preparing for AG BSc exams, right? Agriculture BSc. So, whatever we are discussing is just the basic things, whatever is necessary from exam perspective. And just look at all the previous year question papers if you want. Whatever the thing we are discussing, you'll be getting questions only from this. Okay? So, just don't worry about that. Now, Kharif crops. They require warm, wet weather at major period of crop growth. Okay? So, every plant has a growing period, right? For most of the growing period of the plant, they need warm and wet weather. Kharif crops. Example, cotton, rice, jowar, bajra, all these are kharif crops. Rabi crops. They grow well in cold and dry weather. When I say dry, it's not like very dry. Okay, don't think that, rabi crops grow in very dry conditions. No, moderately dry. For example, wheat, gram, sunflower, all these are rabi crops. So here I'm giving you new examples. New examples of kharif and rabi crops. Next, summer crops. They have a very short season, right? From June to March. Yeah, March to June. I'm sorry, from March to June. So they require warm, dry weather for major growth period. For most of the growth period of the plant, they need warm and dry weather. Example, groundnuts, watermelon, pumpkins, gourds like bitter gourd, all these are summer crops. Okay? Clear, right? So please note down all these examples separately. Trust me, guys, you cannot go through this entire handout before exam. You will feel overwhelmed. You will be under stress. So please make your own running notes. All this data will come to you no matter what. Your handouts will reach you. Okay. But make some notes out of this handout. That is what I recommend. Your own personal notes. Short and sweet, bullet points, or flowcharts, pie diagrams, or mind maps. That is what we need. Okay. So the Kharif crops include rice, maize, sorghum, pearl millet or bajra, finger millet or ragi. All these are cereals. And then arhar or pulses. Soya bean, groundnut, which is oilseed, cotton, which is a cash crop. All these are Kharif crops. Next, Rabi crops. They include wheat, barley, oats. All these are cereals. Okay. Chickpea and gram, these are pulses, arhar. Linseed, mustard, all these are oil seeds. Okay, so now I combined everything together. I combined cereals, I combined pulses, I combined cash crops. I mentioned cotton here, right? I combined oil seeds, I combined everything here. Okay? So previously we were discussing separately, but now I just combined everything together. So these are the Kharif crops and these are the Rabi crops. Okay? So please note down all these examples. Very, very important. Now, classification of crops based on the life of crops or the duration of crops. First, you have seasonal crops. That means a crop completes its entire life cycle. That means from germination till giving us the product. A crop completes its entire life cycle in one season. That is 3 to 4 months. For example, rice, jowar, wheat, all these are seasonal crops. Now you have two season crops. Crops that complete their life cycle in two seasons, that is 6 to 8 months. Okay. For example, cotton, turmeric, ginger, all these are two season crops. Next, you have annual crops. Crops that require one full year to complete their life cycle. For example, sugarcane. Biennial crops. Crops that need 2 years to complete its life cycle. For example, banana, papaya. Perennial crops. Crops that live for several years. Okay, for example, fruit crops, mango, guava. Okay, they all live for a very long time. They have a very large lifespan. Okay, so this is how we classify crops based on the lifespan or duration of the crops. Okay, guys, clear? So there is nothing much here for me to explain. If you have any doubts, if you ask me, I'll feel a bit happy. Don't create doubts for me. Okay. If at all you have any doubts, ask me because there's nothing to explain. Okay, the entire Indian geography is like this. What to do? Now, let us start discussing about rice first. Okay, first we'll discuss about rice and then wheat. Clear? So, rice crop needs plenty of heat, rain, and labor. Okay, rain and heat. By this time, you might have understood that rice needs a lot of heat and rain. And not only that, labor also for harvesting. Because we don't use any mechanical harvesters, right? All those machinery needs a lot of investment, and unfortunately, most of our farmers are marginal, small, and medium level farmers. We cannot afford any large scale machines. So, rice needs a lot of labor also. Planting them, taking care of them, and then harvesting the rice grain, lot of physical effort. Now, as we know, rice is the preferred staple crop in large parts of India. Large parts of India, rice is the preferred staple food. Okay. Now, rice growing areas are well suited for mixed farming. Now, please don't get confused between mixed farming and mixed cropping. Mixed cropping is different, mixed farming is different. When I say mixed farming, I'm referring to crops plus livestock. Okay. When I say mixed cropping, growing multiple crops on the field, that is mixed cropping. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about mixed farming. See, rearing of livestock, even that is a farming activity. So, mixed farming means crops plus livestock. So, rice growing areas are well suited for mixed farming. Okay. Now, what are the rice growing areas? All those areas where you have high annual rainfall and warm weather. Okay. Since because you have high annual rainfall, you also have lot of pastures. You have lot of fodder for animals. That is the reason all these areas are suitable for mixed farming. Such kind of questions will be asked by UPSC, interconnecting two things which are interrelated. Now, we all know this, right? Unpolished rice has high nutritional value because that rice husk is like, it's very rich in nutrients. Okay. It is rich in vitamin A, B, and calcium. But unfortunately, unpolished rice is more expensive than polished rice. Okay. Now, yes, Gautam. Very good. Mixed farming is like integrated farming. Not mixed cropping, Gautam. Mixed farming is like integrated farming. Mixed farming is different, mixed cropping is different. Please don't get confused here. What do you mean by mixed cropping, growing multiple crops on the field? What do you mean by mixed farming? Along with agriculture, you also carry out some other related economic activity like rearing of livestock, rearing of cattle, or having a fish pond, aquaculture, something like that. Now, rice is a kharif crop. By this time, you all have understood that rice is a kharif crop. So rice is a kharif crop. Wet and warm climate is ideal for rice cultivation. That is the meaning of kharif crop. Clear? And it is grown only in well irrigated areas in Rabi season. Okay. Actually, in many parts of India, rice is cultivated throughout the year. Okay. In every season, rice is cultivated in some parts of India. How? What about during the Rabi season? Yes, in Rabi season also, you can cultivate rice provided there is good irrigation facility. Because what is Rabi season? Cool and dry season. That is Rabi season. Yes, maybe rice can survive the cool weather, but rice cannot survive without any water, without any moisture. So, rice can also be cultivated in Rabi season provided it is well irrigated area. That is very, very important. Clear? Now, most of the rice growing regions lie barren during summer. Okay, so during April and May, most of the rice growing regions are like vacant. Okay, the fields are vacant because during April and May, we don't have any water, we don't have any moisture. Just keep one thing in mind, two-thirds of the total arable land in India is rain fed, depending on rainfall, monsoon. With that in mind, read this point, you'll understand everything. Most of the rice growing regions lie barren during summer, that is April and May. So, when do farmers plant the seeds? Just before the burst of monsoons, just before the start of monsoons. Okay? Because rice needs a lot of water. There should always be at least 10 to 12 centimeters, thick water. Clear, right? Yes, Nidhi. In Northeast, not only in Northeast, in many parts of South India also, they cultivate rice throughout the year. In Northeast, in hilly regions, they carry out terraced farming. Okay. See, maybe during the winter season, rice can survive. Yes, rice will survive. No problem. We can make the rice survive. But rice will not survive without water. Water is mandatory, and we need heavy rainfall for that. So, rice can also be cultivated during Rabi season. Actually, rice can be cultivated throughout the year, provided there is good irrigation facilities. Now, for areas where there is no irrigation facility, they have to cultivate rice only during the monsoon season. They don't have any other option. Okay? So, Gautam, what is the basic difference between polished and unpolished? Very simple. If it is unpolished, then the rice grain will have all the outer layers, which are very, very rich in vitamins. Okay? Especially riboflavin, all those are very rich in that outer layer. But polished rice, you remove all that in rice mills. And then you get that white color rice grain. You sell that in the market. That is polished rice. Okay, that is what I know. And I'm hoping that I am correct. And if I'm wrong, then somebody can please correct me. Clear, right? So, rice can be grown as a summer crop in deltaic regions where water and irrigation is available throughout the year. For example, the Krishna Godavari Delta region. Here I told you that in most of the rice growing regions, the field is barren, the field is vacant and empty during summer season, that is April and May. But rice can be grown as a summer crop during March, April, and May, summer months. In areas where irrigation is available throughout the year, for example, the delta regions of Krishna and Godavari. Okay, there are so many canals, so many water resources available. Okay, so you can simply pump water into your field and you can cultivate rice as a summer crop. In this way, as of now, in many parts of India, rice is cultivated as an annual crop, not an annual crop. Rice is cultivated throughout the year. This is the correct term. Okay. Now, rice can be grown between 0 to 2500 meters above the sea level. But beyond 2500 meters above the sea level, the temperature becomes very cool. Then the rice cannot survive. But rice can survive from 0 to 2500 meters above the sea level. But beyond 2500 meters, rice cannot survive due to very cool temperature. Okay? So clear, right? So any more doubts anybody has? Now, what are the requirements of paddy crop? First, rice is a tropical and kharif crop. Keeping in mind, try to understand the requirements. First requirement is paddy needs a warm climate. Rice is grown almost throughout the year, two to three crops, in hot and humid regions of eastern and southern parts of India. Okay? In the northern and hilly parts of the country, the winters are too cold for rice cultivation, and only one crop is grown in summer in those areas. Okay? So, Nidhi, you told that rice is cultivated throughout the year, but I don't think it is at hilly regions. Okay? Maybe in lowlands, rice is cultivated throughout the year in the northeastern parts of the country. Okay? Because if you go beyond 2500 meters, and that too in winter, temperatures are very, very low. And then rice cannot survive such low temperatures. Okay? So, this is the first requirement of paddy crop. What is that? Warm climate. Okay? So, rice can be grown throughout the year. That means two to three crops in a year. It all depends on the fertility of the soil. Two or three crops in a year in hot and humid regions of eastern and southern parts of India. Okay? But in the northern and hilly parts of the country, like for example, northeast, the winters are too cold. Okay? And only during summer, rice is grown during summer and monsoon seasons. Clear, right? Now, rice requires semi aquatic conditions. So, guys, just one second. I guess the laptop is not charging. It is about to get switched off. So, just give me 1 minute time. Okay, sorry for that disturbance in the middle. Okay, so where were we? Now, rice requires semi aquatic conditions. What do you mean by semi aquatic? Rainfall or irrigation throughout the growing season. Okay, the soil should never be dry during the growing season, and all the paddy fields must be flooded under 10 to 12 centimeter deep water at the time. Okay, so as you have seen in many places, all the paddy fields are flooded with at least 10 to 12 centimeter deep water. Okay, so that is the meaning of semi aquatic conditions or wetland like conditions. That is the most suitable word, wetland like conditions. Okay, now this requirement of rice makes it primarily a crop of plain areas. But rice is also well grown in well watered low plain areas. I'm sorry, well watered lowland plain areas. It is called wet or lowland rice. Okay. Now, rice can be grown in areas just below the sea level, like in Kuttanad region of Kerala. So, actually, there are many regions in the country that support cultivation of rice. So, there are some areas which are below the sea level also, like Kuttanad in Kerala. Even there, rice is cultivated. Rice is cultivated on plains, rice is cultivated on lowlands. Okay. So, very simple. Rice needs semi aquatic conditions. Okay. So, at the time of sowing, the rice fields must be flooded with 10 to 12 centimeter deep water. That is mandatory. Okay. So, this is how the rice field should be. And this is terraced cultivation of rice. So, this is what is done in northeastern parts and in hilly regions. And they just try to make sure that there is always at least one, small level of water on these terraces. Okay, guys. Terraced cultivation of rice is followed in sloped regions. For example, hills of northeastern states. So this is terraced cultivation. Okay. The supply of water to the hill terraces is low and the rice is grown in hilly areas is called dry or upland rice. I made actually many grammatical mistakes. That's the reason I'm getting confused here. Okay. If if the supply of water to the hill terraces is low and the rice is grown in hilly areas, then that kind of rice is called dry or upland rice. I hope you're understanding. See, if these hill terraces are watered very well, then there is no problem. But sometimes there are no good irrigation facilities and also the rainfall is less. During these times, water supply to these terraces is also low. Then the rice will become dry and you call that rice as upland rice. Clear, right? I hope you understood this. Now, average annual rainfall above 150 centimeters is good for the rice crop. The 100 centimeter rainfall forms the limit of rice cultivation in rain-fed areas. Again, the keyword here is rain-fed areas. Okay. We are not talking about irrigated areas. In well irrigated areas, you can cultivate rice throughout the year. Not a big issue. But in rain-fed areas, only those rain-fed areas which have annual rainfall of 100 centimeter are suitable for cultivation of rice. If the annual rainfall is below 100 centimeter, then those areas can never produce a good rice crop. So, the 100 centimeter annual rainfall forms the limit of rice cultivation in rain-fed areas. Clear, right? Now, rice is grown in Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP. Now, all these areas have rainfall less than 100 centimeter, but these are irrigated areas. They have extensive irrigation system. But here we are talking about rain-fed areas, which only depend on rain, which do not have any irrigation. Okay. So 100 centimeter rainfall forms the limit of rice cultivation in rain-fed areas. Clear, right? Now, rice is a dominant crop of river valleys, floodplains, deltas, and coastal plains. I hope you understood this. So, moving on, production and productivity. So, India accounts for 18% of the world's rice production. And India is the second largest producer and consumer of rice in the world after China. Second largest producer as well as consumer of rice in the world after China. So, one of the biggest problems Indian agriculture is facing is low productivity. Okay. Now, the average yield of rice in India is 2.3 tons per hectare. Now, what is the global average? 4.374 tons per hectare. That is the global average. Now, see how low Indian yield is. Very, very low. Okay, compare this with China. China is producing 6.5 tons per hectare. Australia, 10 tons per hectare. 10. United States, 7.5 tons per hectare. Okay, so these countries are leading in terms of productivity. But productivity in India is very, very, very low. Only 2.3 tons per hectare. It is lower than the global average. Okay, not only for rice, but for many other crops. Productivity is very, very low in India. And that is due to less mechanization of agriculture. As simple as that. Like you can relate it, right? Common sense. Less mechanization of agriculture. And not only that, the farmers not being aware much and the farmers depending heavily on agrochemicals. But that is not the case in Australia and United States. There, people carry out mulching, they carry out crop rotation, crop diversification, they carry out fallowing, cover cropping. They depend on natural processes. But in India, there is heavy dependence on fertilizers. And the government also encourages the use of fertilizers like anything by providing subsidies. Okay. So that is both a benefit as well as a very, disastrous ecological thing, if you ask me. Clear, right? So clear, guys. I hope you understood all these. So very simple. There are too many things here. So please don't feel overwhelmed. First, remember the crop season of rice. Rice is Kharif. Okay. Even if somebody wakes you up in the middle of the sleep, you should be able to answer this. Rice is a Kharif crop. So rice needs warm and wet climate. That's it. Keep this in mind. Okay. Now, rice also grows in Rabi, provided it is well irrigated. The area is well irrigated. But mostly, rice is a Kharif crop. Okay. See, whenever we are discussing these points, you should keep this in mind. Only then it will make sense. Okay. Now, if you don't keep this in mind, then all these points will be, contradicting each other. Like, for example, here I told you that rice is a Kharif crop. Then again, in the next point, I told you that rice is also grown well in Rabi season. So, what sense does it make? All the points are contradicting each other. It keeps the entire thing very confusing. So, how to get clarity? Please keep this in mind. Most of the arable land in India is still rain fed. Many areas have irrigation, but not well developed irrigation. Sometimes there is water in the canal, sometimes there is no water, sometimes the people just have to depend on monsoon. Okay, so around two-thirds, the vast majority of the agricultural land in India is rain fed. That is the reason I keep on mentioning the word well irrigated. Okay, if you keep this in mind, then all the points will become very simple. See, rice is mostly a kharif. Rice needs wet and warm climate. But rice can also be grown in Rabi season, provided the area is well irrigated. By these 2 points, what is the conclusion you come to? Rice always needs a lot of water. Yes, temperature is a secondary factor. See, we are in tropical region, right? Okay. So even during the Rabi season, temperatures will be high. They won't fall down very rapidly. It is not like a temperate country where there is a lot of variation between summer and winter temperatures. It is not like that for India. We are still a tropical country. So yes, rice can also be grown in Rabi season, provided there is well irrigated area. That is very, very important. Okay. Now, rice can be grown throughout the year. Okay. Rice can be grown as a summer crop. Rice can be grown as a kharif crop. Rice can be grown as a rabi crop. Basically, rice can be grown throughout the year, provided there is very good irrigation facilities. That is the bottom line. That is the conclusion. But if you are only talking about a small farmer who doesn't have any irrigation facilities, the farmer only depends on monsoon, then for him, rice is a kharif crop. which needs wet and warm climate. Clear? So now I'm hoping that you got some clarity. And rice is grown almost throughout the year. That means 2 to 3 crops in a year, 2 or 3. That depends on the fertility of the soil in a hot and humid region of eastern and southern parts of India. Okay. Now, if you go beyond 2500 meters in elevation, then maybe during summer you can cultivate rice. But during winter, there's 100% guarantee that you cannot cultivate rice during winter. Okay. Basically, beyond 2500 meters, even during summer, you cannot cultivate rice. But rice can be cultivated from 0 meters to 2500 meters above the sea level. Beyond 2500 meters, it is very difficult. Okay. Even within this elevation, 0 to 2500 meter, there is a very good chance of the crop becoming a bumper crop only during summer. Okay. So in winter, the productivity will definitely be less compared to summer. So that is the conclusion you should come to. So basically, by reading all these points, you should come to some conclusions. Those conclusions will be asked in UPSC. All the points, whatever we have discussed, will never be asked directly as they are in the exam. Take it for granted. Okay. Whatever we have discussed till now will never appear in the exam as it is, but it is going to come in indirect way. By reading all these points, you should come to some conclusions. Those conclusions will be asked in the exam. There again, if you get confused, then nobody can help you. Okay? And water is very, very important for rice. 10 to 12 centimeter deep at the time of sowing. Okay? So clear, right? Okay. 1 second. Now, which Indian states account for the highest rice production? First is West Bengal. Even though West Bengal is the largest rice producing state in India, West Bengal still has rice deficit. Do you know that? Okay. So, West Bengal, first largest. So, why is West Bengal the largest rice producing state in India? Large scale alluvial deposits, good groundwater resources, abundant labor force, and easily 3 crops can be grown in a year due to large scale alluvial deposits. I told you right, 2 or 3 crops. This depends on fertility of the soil. Next, the second position is occupied by UP. The reasons same as above. Next, Punjab. Punjab is traditionally wheat growing region. But again, the cropping pattern shifted a lot in Punjab over the years. So as of now, Punjab is the third highest or the third largest rice producing state in India. Okay. So in Punjab, there is full use of green revolution, high yielding variety seeds. And in Punjab, there is extensive network of irrigation, large scale canals, tube wells, and all that. Okay. So that is about Punjab. And Punjab has the highest yield per hectare in India. 3,989 kilos or 3.9 tons, almost 4 tons per hectare. So Punjab has the highest yield per hectare in India. Okay. Next, Andhra Pradesh. You have the Godavari Krishna Delta and you have the coastal plains. And also, green revolution is very successful in AP also. People use high yielding variety seeds, the hybrid seeds. Okay. Clear, right? So please keep this in mind. West Bengal, UP, Punjab, and AP. These are the 4 largest rice producing states in India. After this comes Odisha at 5th position. Okay. Nidhi, how is West Bengal rice deficient? What do you mean? Like people eat a lot of rice there. So can we change their eating habits? Okay. So the domestic production is not enough for West Bengal. Okay. So they eat a lot of rice there. Rice and fish, like these are the most favorite dish, right? For people of West Bengal. So, anybody from West Bengal here? Can anybody confirm this? Okay. So now, trade, trade in rice. Domestic rice production meets domestic demand. In India, domestic rice production meets domestic demand, and there is little surplus for external trade. There is surplus, but little quantity. India now occupies second position in rice exports, next only to Thailand. Even with that little surplus, India is in second position in rice exports. First is Thailand. Thailand exports a lot of rice. Okay. Now, India is the biggest exporter of basmati rice. This is very, very important. Okay, very important point. Now, Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP produce best qualities of basmati rice. Actually, all these points are very important. You must remember. Now, Punjab, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, AP, and UP are the rice surplus states. They supply to deficit states West Bengal, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Kerala, and Delhi. Gautam and Mukul, yes. Okay. No, it is not because of trade. People love rice there. Okay, even we love rice here. People of AP and Telangana. And of course, now because everybody wants to lose weight and everybody is, conscious about diabetes and all that, people eat chapatis during night. But during lunch, we have huge quantity of rice. Okay. And I personally love rice like anything. Okay. Clear? So yes, we have discussed a lot of information, a lot of data. So revise this, try to draw some conclusions out of it, write those conclusions on any notebook, revise that, and then go to exam. Okay, so that is how you're supposed to be preparing for UPSC Civil Services exam. Clear, right? So, shall we just move on to wheat? So, second one is wheat. Wheat is the second most important staple food for Indian population. Second most important after rice. And wheat is the preferred staple food in northern and northwestern parts of the country. We can all relate to this, right? Now, climatic conditions for wheat. This is very, very important, guys. Wheat is a temperate crop. I kept on repeating this many times. Wheat is a temperate crop. It requires a cool climate with moderate rainfall, and cool climate. Okay. See, in India, actually, cool climate means, moderately warm. Okay. Cool doesn't mean cool like in temperate countries like United States. Don't think like that. We are still a tropical country. Okay. Even the northern parts and the northwestern parts, they just lie above the Tropic of Cancer. Yes, Tropic of Cancer passes through Gujarat, right? Okay. So India is mostly a tropical country. So in winter we have, cool to warm weather. I cannot call it as completely cool. I cannot call it as completely warm. We have cool to warm weather. So just keep that in mind. So wheat is a temperate crop which requires a cool climate with moderate rainfall. 75 centimeters of well distributed rainfall is ideal. But it doesn't mean wheat cannot grow in areas which has rain below 75 centimeters or which have rain above 75 centimeters. It's not like that. 75 centimeters is the ideal figure. Okay. So fluctuations will be there. See, 100 centimeter is the highest limit. Beyond 100 centimeter, the crop will get spoiled. The crop will die. Okay. Now, this point is again very, 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 very important. The rainfall limit of 100 centimeter separates wheat growing areas from rice growing areas. Simple. In the Kharif season, rice replaces wheat in the regions of Punjab, Haryana, etc. See here, we have discussed that Punjab is the third largest rice producer. But as soon as I say Punjab, people immediately think about wheat, right? Even for Uttar Pradesh, people immediately think about wheat. Then how come Punjab and UP are producing rice? This is the answer for that. In Kharif season, rice replaces wheat in regions of Punjab, Haryana, UP. Okay. Light drizzles and cloudiness. This is caused by western disturbances. And we have discussed what is western disturbances. Do you remember? Western disturbances are temperate cyclones which are, brought from the Mediterranean Sea. Okay. Western disturbances are temperate cyclones. They originate in the Mediterranean Sea. And through westerlies, they travel to the northwestern parts of India. So, light drizzles and cloudiness brought by western disturbances at the time of ripening will help in increasing the yield of wheat. Okay. Now, frost at flowering time can cause heavy damage. So, again, we are venturing deep into agricultural sciences. So, let us not do that. Just let us stop the thing here. Okay. Frost at flowering time can cause heavy damage. What do you mean by frost? Night frost will occur, right? Okay. That is very dangerous for the crop. Now, soil requirement of wheat. Well drained, fertile loams are the best for wheat cultivation. Now, what is best for rice cultivation? Both loam as well as clay soil. Both are best. But for wheat, well drained, loamy soils are best for wheat cultivation. What do you mean by loamy soil? We have discussed soil chapter in geomorphology. Just visit that video and then, read this point again. You'll understand everything. Wheat also grows well in the black soil of Deccan Plateau. But again, during summer in Deccan Plateau, temperatures are very, very high. The wheat crop will die. So maybe during winter, in some parts of Deccan Plateau, where the winters are cool, they can cultivate wheat. Okay? So basically, wheat cultivation is more flexible than rice cultivation, as the limiting factors are low. For rice, what is the biggest limiting factor? Water. Okay. Paddy field should always have 10 to 12 centimeters of water. Soil is okay. Okay. Because paddy is cultivated on black soil, alluvial soil, red soil. Soil is not a big deal. For rice, the biggest limiting factor is water. 10 to 12 centimeter water should always be there. Okay. Now, we don't have that limitation for wheat, right? Wheat, moderate temperatures and moderate rainfall. So, wheat cultivation is more flexible than rice cultivation. That is what you have to keep in mind. Now, wheat shows great adaptability and can be grown in tropics as well. Okay, but in tropics, temperatures are more, so the yield will be less. Okay, so wheat shows great adaptability. You can cultivate wheat in the tropics also, like in Tamil Nadu, in AP, Telangana, Karnataka, where temperatures can become very high, but yield will be less. Clear, right? Now, wheat is mostly a rabi crop. It is a winter crop. It requires cool and less moist weather. Simple. Now, production. India is the second largest producer of wheat in the world after China. See, China is beating us every single time because the yield per hectare is very, very high for China compared to India. Wheat is grown on 13% of the cropped area of India. 13% of the arable land of India, wheat is grown. India has done better in wheat by achieving an yield closer to the global average. It has recorded an average yield of 2.9 ton per hectare against the global benchmark of 3 ton per hectare. Okay. See, for wheat, what is the global average? 3 tons per hectare. And what is the current average number for India? 2.9 tons per hectare. So, in terms of wheat, India has done a better job compared to rice. So, India's per ton yield or productivity is close to the global average of 3 ton per hectare. Clear? However, it is still far from the countries like France, 7 tons per hectare. France, can you even imagine it? Mind blowing, 7 tons per hectare. Just imagine our farmers producing 7 tons per hectare. Wonderful. United States, 3.11 tons per hectare. China, 4.8 tons per hectare. Okay. So, this is another major problem. As we have discussed before, this is another major problem Indian agriculture is facing. Okay. The yield is very low per hectare. And if you really want to double the farmer's income, you really want to do good to the farmers, we have to increase the yield per hectare. And for that, what should we do? We have to go back to the nature. Nature is the answer for all the problems. What do you mean by going back to nature? Sustainable agricultural practices. That is the answer. Okay. For this, we need a lot of behavioral change in the farmers. Good afternoon, Kusum. You came very late. But again, better late than never. Clear, right? Now, distribution of wheat in India. Wheat production is mainly confined to the north and northwestern parts of the country. Punjab, Haryana, and the western parts of UP have earned the distinction of being called the granaries of India for wheat. Okay. Now, states ranking in terms of wheat production, UP obviously first largest. So we don't even have to discuss any reasons. We know all the reasons, right? The very beautiful, fertile, great plain of northern India, which mostly lies in Uttar Pradesh. Fine alluvial soil deposited by the mighty Ganga and its tributaries. And close network of canals, many irrigation facilities. And supplemented by large number of tube wells. And we have the most important Doab region, that is the part of the plain bordered by Yamuna and the Ganga rivers before they meet at Prayagraj. Doab region is the best wheat producing area in the country. Okay, the Ganga, Ghagra Doab as well as Kangra, Yamuna Doab, both the regions. Next, Punjab, second place. Green Revolution was utilized to the fullest extent. Excellent irrigation system, same reasons like rice. Next, third is Madhya Pradesh. Climate well suited for wheat cultivation in winter, not in summer, in winter. Because in summer, Madhya Pradesh, the heat is intense. You'll go mad with that heat. Anyone from Madhya Pradesh can confirm that to me. Okay, so only in winter. Next, Haryana. Obviously, again, same reasons as Punjab, very fertile. Now, this point is important, guys. Haryana has the highest yield of 4,448 kilos per hectare in India. Wheat yield. Okay? Haryana has the highest wheat yield per hectare. 4,448 kilos per hectare. And even Rajasthan is having fifth position. How come? Because of Indira Gandhi Canal. What is Indira Gandhi Canal? We are going to discuss now. Don't worry. Okay, Kusum, IR class. Okay. Aditya. Yes, it's very hot in May. It's in the middle of the landmass, right? Obviously, it's going to be very hot. See, but the problem is coastal areas during summer will be very sultry. There's going to be a lot of humidity in the air. The humidity is so high that your sweat will not be absorbed. Okay. So it feels very sultry, it feels very irritating. That is the problem in coastal areas. In coastal areas, the ocean will moderate the temperature, right? Ocean will make sure that the temperature is not becoming very extreme. But what is the problem in oceanic areas, coastal areas? Very high humidity, due to which the sweat on your skin will not get picked up by the air. So it feels very sultry and very irritating. That is the problem in coastal areas. Now, what is the problem in interior areas like Hyderabad, Madhya Pradesh? temperatures can reach 40, 42, 43, even 44 or 45 in extreme cases. It's going to be very hot, hellish hot. Okay? So now, Indira Gandhi Canal. So guys, this point is very, very important. It is the largest, I'm sorry, not largest, it is the longest canal of India. Again, when I say largest, I'm referring to volume of water that is flowing. No, this is the longest canal of India. Okay. It starts from the Harike barrage. Do you remember this? We have discussed about this while discussing Satluj River. So, Indira Gandhi Canal starts from Harike barrage, a few kilometers below the confluence of Satluj and Beas rivers in Punjab, and ends in the Thar Desert in the northwest of Rajasthan. Okay, so the canal extends from Punjab to northwest Rajasthan. Okay, and the canal provides irrigation to the northwestern parts of Rajasthan. Clear, right? So, guys, I have a question for you. So, please respond, everybody. Now, the rest of the crops are very easy and simple to understand. The way I presented rice and wheat, in the same way, I will present the other major crops of India in your handout. So please tell me, is there any need for me to like take a class for that? It's up to you, completely up to you. Because in the way I presented rice and wheat, in the same way I'm going to present the other crops. But the other crops are like very small compared to these things. Okay. So guys, tell me like, is there any need for me to take class on that? Because I'm not explaining anything, right? I'm just reading whatever is there on the screen. Because there is nothing for me to explain there. Don't you think so? The entire Indian geography is like that. You should have an atlas ready with you, and then there is nothing you cannot understand. But I will explain the entire Indian climate chapter in detail. That I'm going to take class tomorrow. Don't worry about that. So my suggestion, if you ask my opinion, I will give you the entire handout, okay, entire handout of all the major crops in the way I presented rice and wheat. And if you have any doubts, you can always reach me. Just put in a message to the management saying that I have a doubt, ask sir to take class. Definitely I'll take a class and I'll cover that. This is my guarantee. No, right? Okay. So, fine then. Let us meet at 3 p.m. for discussing economic geography chapter. Okay. So you have another class. Please cooperate with me for today and tomorrow, and then we'll finish off the geography syllabus, and then you can practice test series, model questions. Okay. Kusum, my request is please go through the handout, whatever I'm giving you. But if you have any doubts, I'll definitely help you out, Kusum. That is request from my side. Okay. So guys, let us meet at 3 p.m. for economic geography. Okay. So we'll start a new chapter, economic geography, and trust me, all your material will come to you. Okay. Except agriculture and economic geography, the rest of the material will reach you by tomorrow. As I told you, tomorrow evening I'm leaving for Madhya Pradesh. So I'll come back on Friday. On Saturday, I'll give you Indian agriculture and economic geography handouts. Okay? Can you please wait for me? But by tomorrow, you'll get rest of all the handouts. The entire geography handout will be ready with you by tomorrow, except agriculture and economic geography. That I'll give you on Friday. Like I'll come back to Hyderabad on Friday. By Saturday or Sunday, I'll give 100% sure. Okay? Yes, Kusum, 3 p.m. So, guys, let us meet at 3 p.m. Okay, so take care, have lunch, and take rest for some time. We'll meet at 3 p.m.